Don't contact us again. You're no longer our daughter. My dad texted. My sister laughed. I replied, perfect. My lawyer will send the bill with interest. Then the chat imploded with missed calls and screaming texts. Hey, Reddit, get ready to hear the show of a family. I'm Verna, 31, female, and my folks cut me off via group text because I stopped being their personal piggy bank. So I hit them with $78,000 in loan repayment demands. What followed? Well, grab your popcorn. This is going to be fun. The text came through at 9 p.m. on a Wednesday while I was halfway through a gaming session with my buddy Derek. Family group chat. Dad, we're done. Don't contact us again. Consider yourself cut off. I picked up my phone, read it twice, then went back to my game. Derek noticed and asked what was up. I showed him the screen. Damn, he said. What did you do? Stopped writing checks. See, here's the things about being the family bank. Eventually, you run out of sympathy for people who think your wallet is their emergency fund. My parents had been bleeding me dry for 6 years with what they called temporary loans. Loans that were never temporary and definitely never getting paid back. My sister Belle saw the message and reacted with a laughing emoji. Then she typed, "About time someone said it." That told me everything. They'd had a whole family meeting about me, sat around discussing how I was the problem while living off money I'd loaned them that they had no intention of returning. I could have typed out some long explanation, could have defended myself. Instead, I replied, "No problem. I'll have my lawyer send over the loan repayment notices tomorrow with interest." The typing indicator started going crazy immediately. 3 dots appearing and disappearing like someone having a seizure. Then my phone started ringing. Mom, Dad, Belle, back to back to back. I declined every single one and silenced my phone. Derek looked at me with this mix of concern and respect. Dude, are you serious about the lawyer thing? Completely. How much are we talking? I pulled up my spreadsheet. Yeah, I kept a spreadsheet. $47,000 over the last 6 years, all formally documented with signed loan agreements. His eyes went wide. Holy... Yeah, and that's not counting the random small favors they conveniently forgot about. That's just the actual formal loans with paperwork. Here's what they never wanted anyone to know. I didn't just help them out here and there. I bankrolled their entire lifestyle for years while they pretended they were doing fine. Every major loan came with a promissory note. Every single one. Because my grandmother Helen taught me early that family or not, you document everything. Dad had borrowed $18,000 3 years ago for what he called a business investment opportunity. The business never materialized. The investment was apparently a fishing boat he used twice before selling it for half what I gave him. Never paid back a cent. Mom took out $12,000 for medical bills that turned out to be cosmetic procedures she didn't need and couldn't afford. Also never saw a dime back. Belle, the professional makeup artist, had borrowed $17,000 over multiple loans for everything from equipment to rent to emergency car repairs. Her Instagram bio said CEO and founder of some makeup line that didn't exist outside of her bathroom mirror. She'd paid me back exactly $200 once, then asked for another $1,500 the next week. Those 3 major loans, 18, 12, and 17,000, made up the 47 grand I had documented with signatures and terms. There were other small amounts here and there over the years. Couple hundred for utilities, a few hundred for car insurance, but those were harder to prove, and honestly, I didn't even care about that money anymore. The big stuff was enough. I'd been stupid. Not anymore. My phone was lighting up like a Christmas tree with texts. I glanced at a few of them while Derek watched. Mom, how can you be so cruel? We're family. Dad, you're going to destroy this family over money? Belle, you're actually such a piece of garbage. Hope you know that. I showed Derek the messages. He shook his head. Man, they're really trying to flip this on you. That's what they do. It's what they've always done. The messages kept coming. Paragraphs about how disappointed they were, how I was being selfish, how they never thought I'd turn on them like this. Around midnight, Dad sent one more text. Your mother is crying. I hope you're happy. I typed back, tell her to dry her tears with one of the loan agreements she signed. Then I muted the group chat and went to bed. What they didn't know was that I'd had lunch with Grandma Helen 3 days ago, and I told her everything. The loans, the amounts, the complete lack of repayment or even acknowledgement, the constant guilt trips, the way they treated me like an ATM they could access any time things got tight. She listened to the whole thing without interrupting. Then she asked me one question. Where do your parents live? I told her the address, and that's when she dropped the bomb. She went quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Hi, that's my house. I didn't understand at first. Thought she meant she'd sold it to them years ago or something, but nope. She meant it was still hers legally on paper. They'd been living there for 8 years without paying rent, property taxes, or utilities, just existing in someone else's house like it was their God-given right. And that's when Grandma said something I'll never forget. I think it's time they learned what life costs when someone's not paying it for them. That was 3 days ago. By tomorrow morning, everything was going to change, and they had no idea the storm that was coming. I showed up at Grandma Helen's place at 8:00 a.m. the next morning. She was already up, dressed, and had coffee waiting. Sit, she said, pointing at the kitchen table. In front of her was an accordion folder that looked like it had survived a war. She pushed it across to me. Everything you need is in there. I opened it. Inside were decades of documents, property deeds, tax statements, rental agreements that were never signed, payment records that showed exactly $0 received, and at the very bottom, loan agreements with my parents' signatures on them. Wait, loan agreements? I looked up at her. You loaned them money too? $31,200 over 10 years. Her face didn't move. They paid me back $800 total once for my birthday, like it was a gift. No way. I felt my jaw clench. So it wasn't just me. They'd been running this scam on her for a decade before they even started with me. Why didn't you say anything? Because I was stupid. I thought eventually they'd do the right thing, that something would click and they'd realize you can't just take and never give back. She took a sip of her coffee. I was wrong. Some people don't learn. They just get better at justifying it. She walked me through the whole thing. Back in 2017, my parents were supposedly in a financial bind. Dad had quit another job, his third in 5 years, because he didn't vibe with the company culture. Mom had stopped working entirely, claiming chronic fatigue that somehow didn't prevent her from shopping or going to wine tastings. They'd asked Helen if they could stay in her rental property for a few months, just until they got back on their feet. She'd agreed, gave them a break on rent, said they could pay utilities and property taxes instead. That was 8 years ago. They'd never paid a single bill, not one. Over time, they'd started acting like they owned the place, renovated without asking, planted gardens, invited people over, and called it their home. Helen had been too polite to push back, too worried about causing family drama, but the loans were different. Those had paper trails. I spoke with my attorney yesterday, she said, told him everything. And? He said we have grounds for immediate eviction based on breach of rental agreement and non-payment. But the loans, she smiled, well, the loans give us leverage. She handed me another folder. This one had collection notices already drafted, legal demand letters, court filing templates, everything we needed to turn my parents' world upside down. Here's what's going to happen, she said. We're going to file repayment demands for every loan, every single one. Yours and mine combined. That's $78,200. We're going to give them 30 days to either pay in full or set up a payment plan. And when they don't, then we file in court. We get judgments. We put liens on anything they own. And if they want to keep living in my house, they're going to start paying market rate rent, $3,000 a month. I did the math in my head. There was no way they could afford that. Dad's sporadic income and Mom's non-existent job meant they were barely scraping by, even with me funding them. They'll lose the house, I said. Yes, and Belle's been living there rent-free too. She can pay or leave. I sat back in my chair and smiled. For once, I wasn't the one solving their problems. I was the one holding all the cards. There's something else, Helen said. She pulled out her laptop and turned it toward me. On the screen was a Craigslist ad. Luxury downtown apartment available for short-term rental. $180 per night. Sleeps 4. Pet friendly. The photos showed a place I recognized immediately. The exposed brick, the industrial lighting, the art on the walls. "That's Belle's room," I said. "That's my house." Helen's voice could have frozen water. "She's been renting out rooms on Craigslist and Airbnb, pocketing the money, not telling anyone." My hands clenched into fists. "How long?" "At least 18 months, maybe longer. My neighbor mentioned seeing different cars in the driveway at odd hours, strangers coming and going. I didn't think much of it at first. Then I found the listings. She showed me more. Different ads, different platforms. Some listed it as cozy suburban retreat, others as artist's loft space. All featuring rooms in Helen's house, all managed by Belle under fake names. Based on the booking history I could find, she's made at least $15,000 off this, Helen said. Probably closer to $20,000, all while claiming she's struggling and needs loans to survive. I felt rage building. "What do you need me to do?" Helen smiled again, that same look. "Nothing yet. Just be ready, because when we drop this on them, they're going to come at you hard. They're going to tell everyone you're tearing the family apart. Let them." "Good." She closed the folders. "The demand letters go out today. Legal eviction notice goes out tomorrow. After that, we wait and watch them scramble." I left her place feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Power. Not over them, but over my own life. By the afternoon, the certified letters would be delivered. By tomorrow, the eviction notice would be posted, and by next week, they'd realize they'd messed with the wrong people. Let the games begin. The letters hit around 3 o'clock p.m. 17 missed calls in 20 minutes, 6 voicemails, 34 texts. I was at work, sitting in a meeting about quarterly projections, watching my phone vibrate itself across the conference table. My boss looked at me with raised eyebrows. "Everything okay?" "Family emergency," I said. I excused myself and stepped into the hallway, opened the messages. "Mom, what have you done?" "We got a letter from a lawyer. Call me now." "Dad, if you think you're getting a cent from us, you're out of your mind. We're calling the police, Belle." "You're actually trying to sue us? You're seriously that petty? Hope you're proud." I scrolled through them all. Not one acknowledgement of the loans. Just outrage that I dared to ask for my money back. Then came a text from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Simon's attorney. Please have your lawyer contact me to discuss these frivolous claims. This is bordering on extortion." I screenshotted it and sent it to Helen with a message. "They hired a lawyer." She responded immediately. "Good. Mine's better." Around 5 p.m., Derek met me at a diner near my apartment. I needed food and someone to vent to who wasn't going to tell me to work it out or think about family. "So they got the letters," he said, "and apparently asking for your money back is extortion now." He laughed. "Man, your family is something else." They're about to find out what else I can be. I showed him the eviction notice Helen had sent. 30 days to vacate, market rate rent, or get out. "Where are they going to go?" Derek asked. "Not my problem." "Cold. I like that." He grinned. "Wait, you don't know half of what they've done." I told him about the Craigslist rentals, how Belle had been making money off Helen's house while crying poverty, how she'd borrowed thousands from me, claiming she couldn't make rent when she was literally profiting off someone else's property. Derek's face went from amused to disgusted. "That's nasty." "That's my sister." My phone buzzed again. This time it was a group text from the extended family. Cousins, aunts, uncles. Someone had started a group called Family Crisis and added everyone. Aunt Rose, "Can someone explain what's happening?" Maria called me crying. Uncle Jeff, "I'm hearing lawyers are involved over what?" Cousin Amy, "Verna, why are you suing your parents?" And there it was. The smear campaign had started. I typed out a response. "I'm not suing anyone. I'm requesting repayment of documented loans per the signed agreements. If they'd like to discuss the $47,000 they owe me, I'm happy to talk." I attached a photo of one of the loan agreements. Dad's signature was clear as day. The amount, $18,000. The repayment terms, 24 months. The date, 3 years ago. The group went silent for a solid minute, then, "Uncle Jeff. Holy. Cousin Amy. Wait, there are more?" I sent another photo. Mom's loan, $12,000. then Belle's $6,500 for emergency equipment, then another of Belle's, $4,200 for rent assistance. Uncle Jeff, what the heck? Dad jumped into the group. Those aren't loans. That was family helping family. We never agreed to pay that back. I screenshotted his text and sent another photo, the loan agreement he'd signed, the part where it explicitly stated, borrower agrees to repay in full within 24 months. His signature at the bottom. Your signature says otherwise. Mom joined. You're twisting things. We were in crisis. You offered to help. Now you're using it against us. No, I offered loans. You agreed to terms. You never paid. That's called breach of contract. Belle, you're actually doing this in front of everyone. You're such a vindictive jerk. Derek was reading over my shoulder, shaking his head. They're getting destroyed. Aunt Rose, I think we all need to take a breath here. Uncle Jeff, no, I want to see where this goes. Verna, how much do they actually owe? I replied, $47,000 from me, $31,200 from my grandmother, all documented loans with signatures. The group chat exploded, people taking sides, some saying I was being cruel, others saying if they signed agreements, they needed to pay. Then Helen joined the group. Grandma Helen, since we're all here, let me clarify. My son and daughter-in-law have been living in my rental property for 8 years without paying rent, utilities, or property taxes. The agreed rent was $1,200 per month, which totals $115,200 in unpaid rent alone. Add utilities and annual property taxes of $3,600, $28,800 over 8 years, and we're looking at approximately $48,000 more in unpaid costs, over $163,000 total in housing expenses they never covered. They were also given personal loans totaling $31,200, which were never repaid. An eviction notice has been filed. They have 30 days. Complete silence. Mom left the group chat, then Dad, then Belle. The remaining family members started asking questions. I let them talk, let them process, then I dropped the final bomb. Also, Belle has been illegally subletting rooms in Helen's house via Airbnb and Craigslist for profit without permission. We've documented at least $15,000 in unauthorized income over the past 18 months. I sent screenshots of the listings, the Craigslist ads, the Airbnb reviews. Cousin Amy, Belle, seriously? Uncle Jeff, this is fraud. And just like that, the narrative shifted. They went from questioning me to realizing my family had been running scams on multiple people for years. My phone rang. Helen. You're enjoying this too much, she said. Maybe a little. Good. Don't stop now. They're going to play the victim. Don't let them. I won't. Meeting with my attorney tomorrow at 9:00 walk. Be there. We're accelerating the eviction based on the subletting. They've got 2 weeks now, not 30 days. Perfect. I hung up and ordered another round of fries. Derek clinked his drink against mine. Here's to not being a doormat anymore. I'll drink to that. The next 2 weeks were psychological warfare. My parents went nuclear. First came the Facebook post. Mom wrote this long, dramatic thing about how her daughter had abandoned her in her time of need, how she'd sacrificed everything raising me, and this was how I repaid her. The post got attention. Friends from their church, old neighbors, distant relatives who didn't know the full story. They all commented with support. How could she? And family should come first, and I'm praying for you. I watched it from the sidelines, waiting. Then Helen struck back. She commented on Mom's post with receipts. Maria, for clarity, you've lived in my home for 8 years without paying the agreed-upon rent. You borrowed $31,200 from me, with signed agreements to repay within 3 years. Your daughter has been illegally subletting my property for profit. These are facts, not opinions. I've attached the documentation. And she actually did. Posted PDFs of the rental agreement, the loan paperwork, screenshots of Belle's Airbnb account with earnings displayed. The comment section went from supportive to hostile in minutes. People started asking Mom questions she couldn't answer. Someone called her a scammer. Someone else said they were reporting the Airbnb fraud to the IRS. Mom deleted the post an hour later, but screenshots live forever. Cousin Brian had saved it and shared it in the family group with the caption, "In case anyone missed this." Next came the guilt trips. Personal, targeted, brutal. Dad called me from a number I didn't have blocked. I answered by mistake. "You're killing your mother," he said. No hello, just that. "The stress is too much. If something happens to her, it's on you." Then maybe she should have thought about that before borrowing money she had no intention of repaying. "We were going to pay you back." When? In what universe were you going to come up with $47,000? Silence. "That's what I thought," I said. "Anything else?" "You used to be a good person. What the heck happened to you?" "I still am. You're just mad I'm not a doormat anymore." I hung up. Belle tried a different approach. She sent me a message claiming she was getting death threats from crazy people online because of what I'd done, said she was scared to leave the house, said she might hurt herself if this continued. I screenshotted her message and sent it to Helen with a note. Manipulation or genuine concern? Helen replied, manipulation. She's been posting Instagram stories at restaurants all week. I checked. She was right. Belle's stories showed her out with friends, drinking cocktails, living life. The whole "I'm scared" thing was theater. I sent Belle one message back. "You still owe $17,000. She didn't respond. The eviction process moved forward. 2 weeks to vacate. Helen's attorney was ruthless. When my parents tried to claim they had tenant rights and couldn't be forced out on short notice, he dropped a folder of evidence showing the illegal subletting. Pointed out that running an unauthorized rental business from someone else's property voided any tenant protections they thought they had. They had no legal ground to stand on. The judge approved the eviction. 2 weeks. Final. That's when things got personal. I came home from work one day to find my apartment door scratched up. Someone had keyed Trader into the metal. Building security footage showed Belle, sunglasses, hood, middle of the night. I filed a police report and added it to the growing pile of evidence. Then Mom showed up at my work. She walked straight through reception and tried to make a scene. "Please," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "don't do this. We'll lose everything." I kept my voice calm. "No, Mom, you need to leave. We're family. Family forgives. Family doesn't steal from each other." "How dare you? We didn't steal." "You took. You lied. You owe." Security arrived. They escorted her out. Later, my boss called me in. "Do you need time off?" "I'm fine," I said, and I meant it. The family group chat splintered into factions. Some supported me. Others whispered about me being cold. Most just stayed quiet, watching the implosion from the sidelines. Uncle Jeff texted me privately. "I've been thinking about all the times they asked me for money. I never gave it. Always felt guilty. Not anymore." Then my cousin Amy messaged. "Belle asked me for $3,000 last year. I said no." She never spoke to me again. Now I know why. The quiet support felt good, steady, like the first breath after a long storm. A week before the eviction, my parents made their final play. They hired a new lawyer, some slick guy who specialized in family disputes. He sent a letter threatening to sue me for emotional distress, elder abuse, financial coercion. Helen's attorney laughed when he read it. "They've got nothing. This is a Hail Mary." Should I be worried? Only if you're worried about wasting 30 minutes in court watching it get dismissed. The eviction was 6 days away. The repayment case was set 2 weeks later. Everything was lining up perfectly. Then my phone rang. An Oregon number. "Verna?" The voice was calm, older. "This is Colleen, your dad's sister." I hadn't talked to her in years. She'd moved away and stayed out of family drama. "I heard what's happening," she said. "I want you to know. You're doing the right thing." "Thanks," I said. "So, that's... No, I mean it. Your father did the same thing to our parents. Borrowed money, never paid it back, always played the victim. Your grandmother bailed him out more times than you'll ever know." I sat there speechless. "I didn't know that." "That's because they don't talk about it. They make you feel crazy for remembering. But you're not crazy. You're doing what I should have done years ago." We talked for 20 minutes. She told me stories I'd never heard. How Dad conned his own mother, how he borrowed from her friends, how he always twisted the story so he was the victim. It wasn't just me. It was a pattern. And now I understood why Helen had finally snapped. This wasn't about revenge. It was about breaking a cycle. The morning of the eviction, I didn't go to the house. Neither did Helen. We sent her attorney and a sheriff's deputy instead. I was at work when the text started. The family chat was on fire. Everyone knew it was eviction day. Around noon, Helen's attorney called. It's done. They're out. Left about an hour ago. Any issues? Your sister threw a makeup palette at the deputy. Missed. I laughed. Of course she did. The property's empty now. Helen's getting the locks changed this afternoon. What did they take? Everything that fit in a U-Haul, left furniture, trash, couple holes in the walls. We documented it all. I leaned back in my chair and exhaled. It was real. They were out. My phone buzzed again. A new number. We're homeless because of you. If anything happens now, it's your fault. Blocked. 10 minutes later, another. Blocked. Then another. Blocked. Then a call from Aunt Rose. Verna, she said softly, I just spoke to your mom. They're in a motel. They don't have anywhere to go. They had 8 years to figure that out. She says they can't afford first month's rent anywhere, that they'll end up on the street. They should have thought about that before refusing to pay back their debts. Can't you just— No, Rose, I said firmly. They owe me $47,000. They owe Helen $31,000. They lived rent-free for 8 years. They stole from her house. I'm not the villain here. Silence. Then finally, you're right. I know. I feel bad. So do I. But feeling bad doesn't pay the bills. She sighed. You're stronger than I ever was. I just got tired of being used. Over the next 3 days, I got messages from 7 different numbers, all variations of blame, threats, and guilt. I forwarded them all to Helen's attorney. This is harassment, he said. We can file for a restraining order. Not yet, I said. Let's see if they burn out first. Your call, he said. But the moment it escalates, we move. 2 weeks later, the repayment hearing. I took the day off work and met Helen outside the courthouse. Inside, my parents sat on the opposite bench with their lawyer. Mom looked tired. Dad looked furious. Belle wasn't there. When the judge called the case, both sides presented their evidence. Their lawyer stammered, Your Honor, this was a family matter. The judge interrupted. Do you have documentation that these were gifts? No, Your Honor, but then they're loans. Do you dispute the signatures? Dad leaned forward. Those were signed under duress. What duress? We were desperate. Being desperate doesn't invalidate a contract. Do you have evidence of coercion? Silence. The judge turned to our attorney. What are you seeking? Full repayment of $78,200 combined, plus interest and legal fees. If unable to pay in full, we request a court-ordered payment plan with wage garnishment. The judge nodded. Granted. Defendants will repay at $800 per month until satisfied. Wage garnishment to begin immediately. The look on their faces was priceless. Their lawyer tried to object, but the judge had already banged the gavel. We'd won. Helen and I walked out into the sunlight. She smiled faintly. How do you feel? Like I finally got my spine back. Good, she said. Because we're not done yet. I blinked. What now? There's still the matter of the illegal subletting. I filed a civil suit for lost income. My eyes widened. How much are you going for? Whatever we can prove, plus damages. Could be $20,000 or more. I grinned. Grandma, you're terrifying. I'm done being nice. We hugged goodbye and I drove home. That night, I opened a bottle of wine, fed Oscar, and sat on the balcony watching the city lights fade. The chaos was finally behind me. For the first time in years, I wasn't responsible for anyone else's mess. 3 months later, Helen won her civil suit against Belle. The judge ordered $19,400 plus damages. Wage garnishment authorized. 6 months after that, the dust finally settled. My parents were paying their $800 a month. Belle had vanished into some new business venture. And I was living, really living. Work was stable. My savings was growing. And one Saturday afternoon, Derek introduced me to his friend, Leo. Leo was calm, smart, funny in the quiet way. He asked questions like he actually wanted the answers. No drama, no games, just peace. We started seeing each other casually, coffee after work, hiking on weekends, slow dinners that didn't need to impress anyone. He knew about my family situation but never pressed. He just said, "You did what you had to do." It wasn't love at first sight. It was steadiness, balance, exactly what I needed. One evening, as we watched the sunset from my balcony, he said, "You ever think about how sometimes peace is louder than chaos?" I smiled. Every day. A year after the court ruling, the garnishment still hit my account like clockwork. I never touched the money, just moved it straight to savings. Not because I needed it, but because it reminded me of something important. That boundaries are power. That family isn't a license to use you. That letting go isn't cruelty. It's freedom. And that sometimes starting over isn't about revenge. It's about finally living like the storm never owned you. I looked at Leo, the man who'd quietly walked into my calm after years of noise, and smiled, because I'd finally learned the truth. You can't control how people treat you, but you can decide when to stop paying for it.